The Genpei War was a conflict between the Taira and Minamoto clans, with other allied families joining the fray. The pivotal First Battle at Uji is renowned for initiating the Genpei War. Yorimasa, a senior member of the Minamoto clan in the capital, was appalled by the oppressive actions of the Taira clan. In secret, he persuaded Prince Machihito, the second son of the retired Emperor Go-Shirakawa, to lead a rebellion to claim his rightful throne. With a band of 50 loyal Minamoto followers, they left the capital and sought refuge at the Midera temple, enlisting the support of the monks there. However, Yorimasa and his small group, even with the monks' help, were vastly outnumbered by the Taira, who were gathering a force of 20,000 to attack the temple. The only hope for the Minamoto rebels was to secure the assistance of various monasteries, although their reliability was uncertain. They appealed to the Enryakuji, which had recently received lavish bribes from Taira Kayamori, and the Kafukuji in Nara, which promised support. Facing overwhelming odds as the Taira army closed in on Midera, the mixed force of Minamoto samurai and monks made the difficult decision to abandon the temple and join the monks of Nara at the Kafukuji. In the early hours of the morning, Prince Machihito, Yorimasa, and their meager contingent of loyal monks and Minamoto samurai, perhaps numbering as few as 300 men, departed from Mount Hai in a desperate dash for Nara. Exhausted, the prince and his forces decided to rest near Uji, with a river between them and the pursuing Taira. They chose the Bayadoin Inn as a resting place for the prince, while Yorimasa dispatched scouts to watch the river and the northern road for any Taira advance. As an additional precaution, the Minamoto samurai removed about 20 yards of planking from the long wooden bridge. They waited there for either their monk allies from Nara or the approaching Taira forces, whoever would arrive first. At daybreak, the Taira samurai arrived on the northern bank of the river. The Minamoto could barely discern them due to the thick morning mist, but the Taira warriors announced their presence with a resounding war cry. In response, the Minamoto warriors shouted back, and the vanguard of the Taira charged straight onto the bridge, unknowingly riding into the hole that had been created by the Minamoto. As the mist gradually dissipated, a fierce exchange of arrows erupted across the swiftly flowing river. Surprisingly, the monks proved to be skilled archers, shooting their arrows right through the large wooden shields that the Taira had set up for protection. Minamoto Yorimasa even took off his helmet to make it easier for him to draw his bow. Deep down, he understood that this battle was likely to be his final stand. At this point, the more courageous monks within the army began to climb onto the bridge's beams to engage the Taira samurai in individual combat. The first to cross was a monk named Taijima, who discarded the sheath of his naginata and boldly stepped onto the bridge alone. This act made him an immediate target for the barrage of arrows unleashed by the Taira forces. Nevertheless, Taijima skillfully absorbed some of the arrow hits with his armor, ducked to evade others, and deflected some with his spinning naginata. This remarkable feat earned him the nickname Taijima the Arrow Cutter. Soon after, another monk named Jomyo followed Taijima onto the bridge. Jomyo displayed exceptional combat skills, dispatching at least 26 Taira warriors one after another using his bow, naginata, sword, and dagger. Following Jomyo was Ikurai Hochi, who grew increasingly impatient with Jomyo blocking the narrow beam. Driven by a thirst for action, Ikurai grabbed Jomyo by the neck guard of his helmet, placed his foot on the bridge beam, and leaped over Jomyo to the front lines, where he fought valiantly until he eventually fell in battle. Jomyo, after his remarkable combat display, retired from the battle and counted a staggering 63 arrows embedded in his armor, resembling the spines of a hedgehog. The battle on the broken bridge raged on throughout much of the day, resulting in a grim scene with the bridge beams covered in the bodies of the fallen warriors. Some fighters managed to cross over to the enemy's side and return triumphantly with severed heads as trophies. Others, suffering severe wounds, opted to leap into the river to escape the fray. Curiously, there was still no sign of the Nara monks, and the Taira commanders, Tamamori, Shigehira, and their uncle Tadanori, began to entertain the idea of taking a 50-mile detour to use the Sita Bridge. However, this plan was met with disdain by an audacious 18-year-old samurai named Ashikaga Tadetsuna. He proposed that they ford the swiftly flowing river right there and then, and his 300 samurai from the Ashikaga clan eagerly prepared to follow him. In a moment of leadership, Ashikaga Tadetsuna offered some valuable advice, which was later documented in the Heike Monogatari: join hands and advance in a line. If your horse's head is pulled down, raise it back up. If the enemy shoots at us, do not return fire. Instead, keep your head down and tilt your neck armor upward, but not too much, or you'll be vulnerable to shots through the top of your helmet. With a resounding Ashikaga war cry, the entire force successfully crossed the river without incident. The valiant Tadetsuna had the honor of being the first to emerge on the southern bank, drenched from the river crossing. Even in the midst of this thrilling moment, he maintained the formalities of combat. He stood up in his stirrups and declared loudly, "I am Ashikaga no Taira Tadetsuna of Shimizuke, descended in the 10th generation from Tawara Toda Hidesato, the renowned warrior." Concluding his speech, he spurred his horse and battled his way towards the gateway of the Byadoin Temple. The Azuma Kagami, a contemporary chronicle, provides an account of him, stating, "There will be no warrior in future generations like Tadetsuna." He excelled in 3 remarkable attributes: his physical strength, which was equal to that of 100 men, his voice, which could be heard for a distance of 10 ri, and his teeth, which measured 1 inch in length. The Taira main force was somewhat embarrassed by the valor displayed by their allies, prompting Taira Tamamori to lead the rest of the army in a concerted effort to cross the river. For a brief moment, the sheer weight of men and horses nearly formed a makeshift dam in the river, until the mounting pressure of water behind them became overwhelming. The mass of Taira samurai heaved and broke apart, and they were carried in all directions by the force of the rushing current. Most of them eventually managed to emerge from the river, as the Minamoto's attention had been diverted by the Ashikaga attack. Soon, the Taira forces pushed their adversaries back toward the gate of the Byadoin Temple in the ensuing chaos. In the midst of this confusion, Prince Machihito attempted to flee towards Nara, while Uramasa and his sons bravely held off the overwhelming Taira assault. Uramasa was struck in the right elbow by an arrow and withdrew from the battle. His younger son, Kanetsuna, valiantly defended against a group of Taira samurai who were eager to claim the old man's head. Unfortunately, an arrow struck Kanetsuna beneath his helmet, and his elder son, Naketsuna, was mortally wounded. However, they managed to hold off the Taira forces long enough for their father to perform what would later be seen as the quintessential example of harakiri, a form of ritual suicide. Uramasa's suicide, while not the first in Japanese history, was executed with such grace that it served as a model for the most honorable way a defeated samurai could depart from the world. As his sons defended the gate, the septuagenarian samurai calmly composed a farewell poem on the back of his war fan, which read, "Like a fossil tree from which we gather no flowers. Sad has been my life, fated no fruit to produce." Then he sliced himself open by sticking the dagger's point into his abdomen. Soon, he passed away. Uramasa's oldest son Naketsuna joined his father in a ritual death. A devoted retainer removed his head, tied stones to it, and sank it in the river where no Taira trophy hunter may discover it. Although suicide has never been limited to one race, the Japanese practice of harakiri, of which Uramasa is the earliest known instance, is unquestionably the only type of suicide that was designed to be highly painful. The concept of harakiri was considered so gruesome that even the samurai eventually altered it in later years. Instead of the traditional self-stabbing, a symbolic stabbing was performed, and a trusted individual would then behead the person. After the Minamoto heroes were eliminated, the Taira clan pursued the prince, catching up to him in front of a Shinto shrine where the plot's mastermind perished under a barrage of arrows. Shortly after, 7,000 warrior monks departed from Nara, but upon learning of the rebellion's swift conclusion, they hurriedly returned to their temples. Meanwhile, The Taira clan celebrated their victory as they rode triumphantly to Kyoto, displaying the heads of the prince and Yorimesa's sons as a sign of their success. The Battle of Uji in 1180 brought a sudden and dramatic end to the initial uprising of the Genpei War. Almost as soon as the call to arms reached the Minamoto clan in the east, Prince Machihito, who had led the rebellion, was already dead, and the revolt he had initiated had quickly crumbled. This early uprising came close to extinguishing the warrior monks as a prominent institution, as Taira Kayamori, seeking vengeance, pursued them relentlessly. On December 19, 1180, Taira Tamamori was dispatched to punish Midera. In a dawn attack, 10,000 Taira samurai launched an assault. The monks had constructed a defensive barrier using wooden shields and fallen trees, leading to a day-long battle that ended with the monastery being set ablaze. Taira Kayamori then turned his attention to the formidable warrior monks of Nara.